Joining us now, our special guest live from Jacksonville, is Cole Pepper of the Jacksonville Jaguars Network. Cole, how you doing today?
Doing great.
We appreciate you taking the time. I know just how busy you are. We've been trying to kind of nail this down for a couple of weeks now, and thank you very much for taking a few minutes with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Always happy to have people go through my people, you know.
People talking to people. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions to get you started about the Jags and the bigger picture of things. First off, a lot of talk about Jacksonville as a permanent NFL city, and is that something that sort of on a day-to-day basis affects you folks reporting it and the players and the ownership? I mean, is that a theme that is constant out there?
It is an ongoing theme as far as something that's in, percolating. How is the city doing as it relates to that? Keeping an eye on what's happening in L.A., keeping an eye on what's happening in Minnesota. For a little while there, keeping an eye on what was happening in London, although I don't think that's a realistic situation at all. But this is sort of twofold. One is that Jacksonville has been, hit hard by the economic downturn. The housing market, there was a real housing boom here in terms of the number of buildings that were built and construction market, and obviously that slowed down a little, so that's affected a lot of jobs and a lot of industry that's attached to that in one way or another. And secondarily, quite honestly, the Jaguars have not put a good enough product on the field over the last 4 or 5 years consistently in order to, prove that, yes, this is a great NFL city. So, you can have all you want in terms of, saying that this team is going to be moved or that team is going to be moved. But if Jacksonville wants to prove that it's an NFL town, number one, the very first thing that has to happen, in my opinion, is that they've got to put a better winning product on the field more consistently. And I think they've taken the early steps to doing that when they hired Gene Smith as the general manager a couple of years ago. He's building what I would say is the right way, building the foundation. They drafted the quarterback this year. They drafted 2 offensive linemen in his first draft. Picked up Tyson Alualu, who was a real stalwart in the middle of the defensive line last year. So building with the big guys and the quarterback, now they need to go out and find some playmakers on the outside. So I think they've laid a good groundwork for it. Now it's really the question of can they get it done on Sundays?
Yeah, and will they be able to kind of benefit from that investment in a quick enough time before, the speculation reaches a point where it's too late and the plan is already in place for them to leave?
Remember, now, you can talk all you want about a plan for them to leave, but this team is not going to leave as long as Wayne Weaver is the owner. It's too important to his legacy. He's not going to move it. At some point, Wayne's 76, at some point he's got to sell the team, and then the question is, once he does that, what's the window? How long does the window stay open after that? And if he sells the team, I would say probably talking about a minimum of a 5-year situation before, where the team would have to stay in Jacksonville, maybe as much as 10, but that all comes down to the negotiations in the boardroom.
It's an excellent point. Cole Pepper with us, studio host at Jaguars Radio Network. You guys are in a unique position because, yes, the NFL is king and it's a big deal, but you're also in the heart of SEC country, so you're competing for the attention of a lot of football fans on the college level as well.
But that's not totally unique. You've got how many Buckeye fans do you have in Cleveland, right? There may not be as many teams that draw in an arena with the numbers as Ohio State does elsewhere, but you still have folks throughout the state of Ohio going to college football games on a regular basis. The TV ratings indicate that the only time that the college games approach the pro games, the Jaguars games, are if it's a Florida State game. You have 2 teams going at it, and the game matters. If it's a Florida State game or a Florida-Georgia game and there's not a lot on the line, those numbers just aren't there. So the NFL is still king, and that's not so much the issue. The issue, as I said, was put a winning product on the field that'll draw more people, sponsors and season ticket holders and luxury suite holders and so forth will get involved, and then you get more money coming in, and then there's not as much of a worry. Now, the new collective bargaining agreement at this point looks like it's something that's going to be more favorable for the smaller market teams than the last one. We'll see how it plays out, but that's going to impact things as well.
Now, you talk about the product on the field, and we have something very, very similar going on in Cleveland, and that is 2 young quarterbacks trying to cut their teeth. You kind of could draw some parallels between Colt McCoy and your young quarterback. How is everything going in Jacksonville right now?
Well, I think from a productivity standpoint, you look at it and go, geez, 32nd ranked offense in the National Football League, that's dead last, that's no good. And it'd be tough to argue with that. So far, Blaine Gabbert has looked like a physically talented young quarterback. Guy's got a very strong arm, but he's made some mistakes in terms of where to go with the football occasionally. He's done, I think, better than probably expected. There have been times where he's made some throws with anticipation and so forth that you just go, wow. Now if he can do that more often, then the Jaguars are in great shape. So we saw Colt McCoy at the end of last year when the Jags and Browns played, and you saw some things. Okay, it looks like he knows where to go with the ball. Doesn't have the strongest arm, but it looks like it's okay. Moves around pretty well. You start seeing some of those components of what's going to happen to define what kind of a player he is. The thing that I always try to explain to fans is these guys are not finished products coming out of college, and particularly quarterbacks. It's such a difference for a guy who started in a shotgun spread passing offense in Missouri to come in and play a pro-style offense in the NFL. That is a big jump, and go from Big 12 defenses to NFL defenses, and the Jaguars have played some good ones this year, Steelers, Ravens, and so forth. And now they get the number one rated pass defense in the NFL this week with the Browns. It's a process. So there's a certain level of patience that has to happen. The problem has been the last time there was a young quarterback drafted, Byron Leftwich here, people waited and were patient, and it never quite happened. And sometimes that's the case. I don't think the Jaguars can afford to have another situation like that where a young quarterback doesn't develop.
Cole Pepper, Jaguars Radio Network. The other thing about Gabbert, he seems to be good. He seems like he has a lot of weapons, intangibles, tangibles, but he's almost a victim of circumstance. You look at Andy Dalton and Cam Newton doing well, and we've almost forgotten how tough it is to be a rookie quarterback in this league.
Yeah, you know what the biggest difference is between those three quarterbacks? I mean, it's who do they have to utilize. You've got Steve Smith for Cam Newton. You've got A.J. Green, who it doesn't take much to see how good he is, and we saw him play a lot just up the road here in Georgia in college. The Jaguars have their number one receiver is Mike Thomas, who's probably better suited to be a number 3, a slot guy. They've got a Pro Bowl tight end, Marcedes Lewis, who suddenly can't catch anything this year. And you've got a bunch of role player receivers filling in. The Jaguars need an impact go-to receiver, and yes, Calvin Johnson or Andre Johnson or Larry Fitzgerald would be great, but it doesn't have to be somebody at that level. But they need an impact receiver, then they need a good, solid possession receiver. And frankly, just need guys to make more plays, catch the football. I mean, the Jaguars have had 21 dropped passes so far through the first 9 games. 9 of those would have been first downs. 3 of them would have been for touchdowns. Jaguars' record would have been totally different had guys just caught the football.
Jags are coming into Cleveland, and what do you think they're going to do to exploit the Browns defensively?
Well, they're going to run the football. I mean, Maurice Jones-Drew obviously is the star of this team, and they're going to run the ball. Cleveland has had that kind of success statistically against the pass this year. I'm not sure that you would categorize the Cleveland pass defense in the same way you would, a Ravens or a Steelers in terms of star power, but they've been productive this year. I think the Jaguars are going to run the football. I think you'll see that a lot. The strength of the Jaguars' offense right now is in the running game. So look for a big, healthy dose of Maurice Jones-Drew on Sunday.
All right, Colin, I'll have to pin you down before I let you go. Give me a prediction.
Well, these are not exactly two high-powered offenses. I think we're looking at a low-scoring game, and I'll say 16-10 Jaguars.
Man, I'll tell you, I love to be contrarian, but I can't go against that. I think you're right in the ballpark. 13-10, 16-13, and I kind of like the Jags' chances a little bit. Cole, thanks for coming in and spending some time with us.
Absolutely. Have a good one.